We're going to come back to the original question of how do you monetize the sports car?
Yeah.
So the question his wife asked him was, why are you spending so much money on your hobby? Well, he's a clever man. He said, honey, it's not a hobby, it's a business. She said, really, what's the business? Quickly thinking, he said, aerial photography and helicopter pilot training. And so what he did is he ended up launching the world's largest helicopter pilot training facility in the world.
Wow.
Ended up doing over $100 million per year during the time that he had the company, and then in turn sold the company.
Right. Okay.
So again, it comes back to the programs of millionaires and billionaires. We don't see something and say, okay, I can't monetize that. We see what we want and we say, how do I monetize that?
Okay.
Let me give you another story from real life.
Okay.
One of my mentors is Sir Richard Branson. And Sir Richard Branson, in an attempt to frankly get laid before he had married his wife, he's talking to his wife, and he thought it'd be a really cool date to say, hey, why don't we go island shopping? Now, he couldn't afford an island, but he figured if you tell people you're island shopping, what they do is they pick you up in a helicopter, they fly you to all these private islands, you get to stay on the island for a few days to see if you like it before you buy it. And so what he was doing is attempting to, number one, impress his soon-to-be wife, and number two, get free trips. So he's flying all over the Caribbean. He stops on island after island after island. Finally, at one point, the realtor realizes he can't afford to buy an island. And so she calls him on it. She's furious because she spent this money on the helicopters and he stayed at all these islands. And my philosophy, and it's a good philosophy in general economically, that if you can't afford something and you still think you might want to, then what you do is make a lowball offer. So he found this island that he liked. The island was for sale for X, and he offered up 1/5 of X, okay. 20% of what it was selling for. Well, much to his shock, the guy accepted the offer. Well, now he's got a dilemma. He's now got an offer accepted. He still doesn't have the money for the island, except back to what I said before. He went out and found some partners, and he said, hey, I can't afford the island, except I'm stealing it. Would you like to partner with me, or at least loan me the money so that I can buy the island? Now, he's bought this island, and he builds his home there. And if you have a private island, it's kind of foolish to be there all by yourself. It gets lonely. Yeah. So what he did was he built additional huts there, additional housing units, places where people could come stay. So now Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson, owns Necker Island, 77 acres down in the British Virgin Islands, ironically, and he rents out the island on a weekly basis for $350,000. Well, that's $17 million a year.
Wow. So
not only does he have an island that he can enjoy with his family, he's also got a place where celebrities and all sorts of high-end people go to. Larry Page got married there. He's got a place where other people come in and they spend that $350,000 in a week, and maybe he only nets $250,000. So now he's netting $1 million a month, and he's got his own island. And so again, that's how millionaires and billionaires think differently than paupers. That's how the programs are different, is once again, we see what we want and we say, how do I have that?
Also Joe Vitale with his Rolls Royce, charging
$5 grand.
$5 grand, pick you up at the airport, help you out with your business, and spend time with you.
So he puts the car together with a coaching session, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he probably didn't have to, but that was a way to monetize it.
Well, and same thing with this house. This is a 17,000 square foot house. I live here with my beautiful wife, Erica, and our two sons, Sterling and Maximus. And this house, this very location we're seated at right now in the great room, I actually hold high-end masterminds. And the students pay between $30,000 and $50,000 for a 3-day program. And they invest in it, and what I do is I help them monetize their businesses.
Okay.
And so, we've got a house that's an amazing place. I love living here. And yet the house has paid for itself many, many, many times over because we've done over 30 masterminds here.
Okay. So consciously, everything you're saying makes sense. To the people watching, I mean, I don't see
You mean to you?
To me.
Don't let her project on you.
I'm representing.
Don't let her hypnotize you.
I'm representing that if I get it, they probably get it. So consciously. However, there's still those subconscious programs that don't just go away just because Marshall Sylver said so.
Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do.
I agree with Marshall.
Yeah, that's hypnosis. And again, that is it.
Really? So just because you're telling them that rich people look at things in a different way.
And you keep calling them rich people. And I don't really know what that is.
Said.
No, you said.
Oh.
I said millionaires and billionaires.
Okay.
You said rich people.
Okay, millionaires and billionaires look at things in a different way. So just because you've said that, now you're thinking that made some difference on a subconscious level for them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
If you took a child from the time it was born until it was 8 years old, and you said to that child, you dirty, rotten, good for nothing, you'll never amount to anything, you were a mistake, we wish we never had you, you're going to be a drug addict, you're going to be a prisoner, you're going to end up dead or in prison, nobody's life is better because you exist. If I only spoke, again, that was 10 seconds, and you can feel the energy suck in this room with 3 very positive people. especially because you have a child and I have kids, you know that would scar that kid for life.
Yeah.
And even if that abusive parent or that abusive person was taken out of that child's life forever after 8 years, the damage is done.
Oh, yeah.
And so what happens is all communication goes to the subconscious mind at some level, at some depth.
Okay.
Now, your question more specifically is how quickly can programming change? And that absolutely varies person by person by person. At the same time, every single thought we think has a physical or psychosomatic response in our body, which means we can't hold a thought without our body somehow psychosomatically moving, shifting. And then that shift becomes an echo to the outside world. In other words, if you came here and hung out with me in the great room of Prosperity Palace and sat here for 3 days, I promise you at the end of it all, you'd want one. You really would. You'd go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I want this. And if I also gave you a plan, a very specific way of making that happen, so that you didn't think I got lucky, so that you didn't think that maybe other people can have that life and you can't, and you finally just accepted that in order for things to change, you must change, then what happens is suddenly the person says, okay, maybe I was just misinformed. Maybe it's not my fault that I am where I am. Maybe I'm a victim of the programs that went into my mind from youth and now can change those programs because I'm identifying them. Because if you took that same exact child from the time the child was born till they were 8 years old and you said to that child, you are a gift from God. You'll grow up and do great things. You'll touch many people's lives. Everything you touch will turn to silver. And Sterling, my son, of all the things that I'm proud of, it's you and Maximus, your brother, that I'm most proud of. Those boys grow up dramatically differently because they've got different programs.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people go through time and they mature, they age, and they start thinking you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that in and of itself, as you know, as we know, is hypnosis. It's not true. You can change. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what programs you have in your brain. And the first thing to change is to lose the resentment of wealthy people. You know, I won't drive my Rolls Royce to any place that doesn't have valet parking. And it's real simple. I'm positive that sooner or later, if I parked it in a regular parking lot, somebody's going to key it.
Yeah.
And so when I drive the car, I usually get one of 3 responses. 8 out of 10 people pull up beside me, give me a thumbs up. Hey, nice car. 1 out of 10 people flips me off and swears at me and calls me, names. They don't even know me,
right,
just because of the car and because they're angry at their current situations. And the 10th person, though, is the one that I get the most pleasure from. And that's the person that pulls up beside the car, motions for me to roll the window down, and they say, whatever you're doing, please teach me. And so, growing up as poor as I grew up and watching my mom struggle really badly and wearing my sister's clothes as hand-me-downs to school and having that kind of humility, when I was young, I resented wealthy people.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I had a mentor when I was 14 years old that I worked for from 14 till about 21. And I watched this guy, 9 years my senior. He was poor growing up. He loved his mama. And I watched him become wealthy. I watched him become a multi-millionaire over those 9 years that I worked with him. And my mind said, whatever he can do, I can do too. And so I think it's really important for people to find mentors that they can identify with. Find people that you can look at them and there's no excuse. You say, well, heck, I'm smarter than they are, or I'm, more creative than they are, or I have more hair than that guy has. And then what happens is you no longer can have excuses. Reality is created by validation. And so when I do my events, when I do our seminars, I'll often have other students that I've worked with in the past come to the event and be able to give that live testimonial that I sat where you're seated. I know what it feels like to pray that the guy that you're listening to right now, even now, is sincere and not at some other time somebody just attempting to separate you from your money. The bottom line is when you have a mentor that you can identify with, somebody that you can look at and say, I not only like their lifestyle, I'd like to live a life like that, I also believe that person could teach me because I can relate to them completely.
Okay.
I can't relate to Donald Trump. I've shared the stage with Donald Trump on numerous occasions, and I think he's an amazing brander. I can't relate to him, though. My father didn't give me $200 million plus to get my career started. If he had, I too could have turned it into, billions of dollars. And I think most people watching this probably have a similar circumstance to me, that they started with little or nothing, or maybe even worse than nothing. And so when you find a mentor, and I'd love to help be that mentor, and I know everybody here wants to help you, the first thing is, though, you've got to lose resentment. You've got to let go of any anger you have toward people that are successful. And instead of being angry, just say, what are they doing? And then secondly, in order to be mentored, to be taught, the student must be ready for the teacher to appear. So in other words, you've got to be moldable talent. You've got to be able to say, okay, show me, mold me, I surrender to you. Because unless you surrender, nothing changes.
Okay. So for the people watching, they want to take that first step and kind of start to shift beyond, you've got the momentum going, Now they want to do something more definitive. What do you suggest?
Well, I'd suggest number one, as Steve Jobs said in his commencement address, he said, however long it takes, find what you love. And you've got to do that. Find what you love. You can monetize anything. So my question is, it's simple for people to relate to the fact that they could become a billionaire investing in real estate. We've got plenty of examples of that, obviously Donald Trump amongst them. Do you think you could become a billionaire tinkering around in your kitchen, fooling around in the garden in the backyard? Well, of course you can. Her name is Martha Stewart. Do you think you could become a billionaire by riding a unicycle, playing an accordion, and eating fire? Absolutely you can. His name is Guy Lalabarte, the founder of Cirque du Soleil. So the bottom line is you can take anything that you want to do and figure out how to monetize it. So that is first and foremost, figure out what you love. You know, all of my seminars are based on one thing, and that is helping an individual live their life. And even though we help people become millionaires and multimillionaires, I never tell people what they should do. I show them what vehicles work most easily. You know, some are going to be a struggle. You know, if I want to be a billionaire meditation expert, not only is it possible, because they exist right now, it might be a bigger battle though than say I wanted to buy and sell real estate, or I wanted to start an entrepreneurial endeavor or something else that might have a higher likeliness and speed of process to help me create my financial plans and goals.
A lot of times when I tell people I'm a hypnotist, because they see me on, you know, the Millionaire Matchmaker or whatever, they ask what I do, they say, well, what else do you do?
Right.
In other words, what do you actually make money from? Not realizing that my passion is what generates the money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of people that have walked into this house or to my beach house and asked the same question, what do you do for a living? I'm a hypnotist. Yeah, but what do you do for a living?
Right. What's your real job?
Exactly. And I get it. And as you know, Steve, because we are, candidly so, two of the most successful people in our field, at least financially for sure, and you certainly with just your sheer reach of people you've communicated with. And you know there's a lot of people in hypnosis that don't do well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in personal development that don't do well. And you know, sometimes they take a look at us and they say, how in the world did you figure out how to monetize this? And the way you monetize anything is you give value to someone else in a way that's meaningful to them, not to you. You don't sell them what you want to sell them, you sell them what they want to buy. And hypnosis in particular is the ability to shift the frame of reference around something so that what you're selling looks like what they're